What is your favorite football stadium you've ever been to? How many have you been to? In today's video, I am going to be ranking from worst to best every NFL stadium. But before we get into that, I just want to apologize to all of my subscribers right now. I have not been posting at a consistent rate since about Christmas time. That's just because this video that I'm about to share with you today has actually been taking me several weeks to work on. With balancing other things in life, and then this video, it's just, I spend a lot of time analyzing every stadium. I wanted my rankings to be perfect. Obviously, opinion-based, really. Yeah, so anyways, I'm super excited that I'm finally ready to film this video because it's been a minute since I've posted truly anything related to like sports other than like baseball free agency. Also, my main channel has been, pretty much based on like my life vlogs, but also with my baseball content. This is my first ever football related video that I'm going to be putting on my channel. So without further ado, let's get into it. Getting it started for us at the number 30 spot, we have FedEx Field, home of the Washington Commanders. Basically, I think this is obvious as to why it's at number 30. It's a stadium that is clearly falling apart. Pipes bursting, railings breaking. It is just a stadium that desperately needs replaced. And it doesn't help that the team just kind of sucks. You go there, traffic is absolutely horrible. There's not much to do around the stadium. It's just placed dead center in a parking lot. No attractions or anything near the stadium to do before or after the game. It's just a stadium that ranks dead last on my list. Moving on to the number 29 spot, I have TIAA Bank Stadium. Out of all of the stadiums, TIAA still ranks second to last on my list. Nothing stands out to me about this stadium. The owner did spend over $60 million on the world's largest video boards. That's something worth noting. The stadium has not undergone a large, very needed renovation since 1995. Basically, other than putting in those video boards, there has not been any upgrades to the seating. You're in Florida, it gets hot. Fans suffer through September and October. Maybe even November. I don't live in Florida, I don't really know. But I've been down there and I know it's freaking hot. I do give the stadium a point for being by the water, but it just doesn't seem to have much other things to do in addition to just the field. You're gonna see me point that out a lot. If the stadium is higher up in my rankings, it's gotta be because it's got stuff around it. A big football activity before games is tailgating, and a lot of people are pleased with just that. But it's always fun to have bars or restaurants or see hotels that are near the stadium for out-of-town fans coming to visit. That's why TIAA Bank Stadium is still at number 29 on my list. Moving on to number 28, I have the Superdome, home of the New Orleans Saints. I have seen so many rankings where some people put this in their top 10, top 15. I think maybe because it is so different from every other stadium, to me, I just think it's not that great. And here's why. I personally find the stadium just very dark, and for the main reason as there is no natural light in the stadium. It kind of is like the Tropicana Field of the NFL. I do give it points for where it's located. I also give it some points for being unique / the design exterior and LED lights around the stadium. Those can be pretty cool. But other than that, that's just points for the exterior. So as of right now, Superdome is just still at number 28 on my list. Moving on to number 27, I have MetLife Stadium, home of the Jets and the Giants. This is a stadium a lot of you may be like, wait, what? Why is it ranked so low? First off, I don't necessarily care that the stadium has the largest seating capacity. The stadium just disappoints. Basically, the best way I can describe it, it's a cookie cutter design. It just seems like you took the most basic football stadium that you could make, enlarged it, made a lot of seating, and that's about it. I will say, I do understand it is hard to put two different teams' personalities into a stadium when, like, of course, you have two different teams playing there. But the stadium, when I look at it, it just looks so boring. Truly just a big old cookie cutter stadium. I personally don't like the location. I'm sure a lot of you can agree. It's very out of the way in a whole different state of New Jersey. It's just out of the way for local fans that want to go catch a game. I've seen a lot of people say that traffic is just horrible in and out of there. There's nothing to do around the stadium, and that's just why it still ranks at number 27 on my list. Coming in at number 26, I have NRG Stadium, home of the Houston Texans. This is also something I thought long and hard about. I was not sure where I wanted to put it. It may not be as bad as I did rank it, unfortunately. But this is one I would consider moving up a couple spots. I'm just not a fan of the assortment of seat colors. I don't know why. I just, this really isn't that big of a deal. But when I do look at the stadium, just the different seat section colors, I don't know, there's something about it just kind of throws me off a little bit. I do give it points. There is a nice open wide feeling of the stadium. It is of course an enclosed stadium being in Texas, but other than that, it's just nothing too crazy about the stadium, and I think that is ultimately why I did put it at number 26. It's not bad, it's just not anything special. Coming in at number 25, I have Bank of America Stadium, home of the Carolina Panthers. I am a fan of the location. You can tell throughout this video, I love stadiums that are centrally located in the cities and towns to walk around and do things and see things and have an overall experience. It's still just like a bit lackluster to me. It's not the worst, it's just not the best as well. Kind of like MetLife, it still feels a bit cookie cutter-ish, just with blue seats instead of plain colored seats. But like I already said, I do like location. There's some things to do around there, and it is centrally located in Charlotte. Coming in at number 24, I have Nissan Stadium, home of the Tennessee Titans. If this stadium was ranked in my list just based off of location, it would be a lot higher. Other than just location in Nashville, the stadium itself is nothing all that great. The wheels are already in motion for a new stadium to possibly be built by 2026, I read. Parts of the stadium are just starting to fall apart. The stadium is just overall very bland compared to the other stadiums further down on this list. Like I already said, I give it points for the location and basically in the city just over the river. It's really not the worst stadium, of course. It beat the rest that are behind it. It's just all the ones ahead have a lot more to offer, and the stadium's just very outdated now. Coming in at number 23, I have Highmark Stadium, home of the Buffalo Bills. Now, first and foremost, they are planning to get a new stadium at some point. Location is a downside here. It's in the middle of freaking nowhere, just surrounded by a plain parking lot. There's just nothing to even do to help pass by time after, like a bar or restaurant or whatever. There's no special views of the stadium. I always love to give stadiums extra brownie points for views from seats. I know that can be kind of rare sometimes, but other than that, this stadium, just to me, via picture, just looks very much smaller than the rest. I don't want to give it this label, but if I were to think of a college stadium, Highmark Stadium gives me that vibe. You don't really have upper decks. It looks to be limited seating, but it's not the smallest capacity in the NFL. It's just the way that it looks. Coming in at number 22, I have Paycor Stadium, home of the Cincinnati Bengals. Big fan of the location here. With it being in the city of Cincy, the stadium is right on the water, with one side of the stadium view being the water, the other being the tall buildings of Cincinnati. I'm also personally a big fan of this stadium. I love how big the stadium looks and feels. Like, this looks like an NFL stadium right here. But the one thing that still holds it at number 22 is if you take away the Bengals logo on the field, the stadium is a bit lackluster, and a small complaint are how outdated and small the jumbo screens look. But just know that's the only reason it still sits where it is, okay? It just lacks a little bit of personality from the Bengals themselves. They have like a cool logo. They could have implemented that a lot more in the stadium, maybe different colored seats other than just like this forest green, like black grayish dark color. If they just were to implement a few more things, it could jump heavily on my list. It's not horrible. It's near water, it's near the city, you have views of the city. It's overall a really good stadium. It just lacks a bit of the personality from, you know, them being the Cincinnati Bengals. Moving on to number 21, I have Soldier Field, home of my Chicago Bears. I am a Bears fan, so I don't want to hate on it too hard because I'm biased. But no, I mean, I still feel like I put it in a fair spot. It does have the smallest capacity of any NFL stadium. I am a fan of location here. I know people have problems and complain about the parking, but just like, you know, the other team being Wrigley Field, they suffer that problem too. It's just how you have to deal with things. I wouldn't drop it down on my list solely just for that. It is Chicago. I will take a stadium in or near the city over being in the middle of a freaking parking lot any day. One thing that has it as high as it does for me is the view. If you were to sit on the east side of the stadium, like in the higher upper decks, you get a beautiful view of the city. The tall buildings and everything, it's just beautiful there. So like that's where I would sit 100%. I will say it doesn't have anything crazy near it because it is like right by a huge highway and you know, you have like museums and stuff like that around it in the aquarium, but no, I mean, it doesn't have like crazy restaurants or bars near it. Anyways, moving on, Soldier Field sits at number 21. Coming in at number 20, I have First Energy Stadium, home of the Cleveland Browns. You're gonna notice with the last 3 stadiums I've ranked, they all give me a similar vibe. Paycor Stadium, Soldier Field, and First Energy Stadium. They all give me a relative same vibe, and that's why they're kind of all here just jumbled up in this area. I do like the location. It is right in the city of Cleveland. I love how big the stadium looks and feels. The seats being orange fits the stadium very well, unlike Paycor, like I already mentioned, having such plain colored seating. The color of the seats and the color of the team, I think, should be relative to each other. I like the stadium being near water, which a lot of stadiums are, but there are still stadiums better than this one, but that's why it is still only at number 20. Coming in at number 19, we have Ford Field, home of the Detroit Lions. First and foremost, I know this as of right now, I can foresee being the biggest complaint maybe to you viewers. I am just going to first off say this is still such a great stadium despite it being at number 19 on my list. I love it being in the heart of the city, right next to Comerica Park. Not a horrible stadium, clearly. I just feel as if the stadium already being an enclosed stadium, I think this is my biggest complaint. It just, it still looks very small with the short roof. I think it's the smallest looking enclosed stadium that I have seen, and that's why I had to bump it down a little bit. This is on my list of stadiums I would like to visit in person to change my mind. Like I said, I really love the location. It's a 23-year-old stadium, and I'm just not crazy about how outdated the roof looks. Some fans may like it because it feels very intimate, but for me, it takes it down just a couple spots. There are things to do around the city. It seems like a nice environment overall, especially, you know, of course, with how the Lions, they've won 2 home playoff games just in the last 2 weekends. I am so happy to finally see that place have something to truly cheer about. The stadium would probably go up a lot higher on my list if it was a tad bit more like Lucas Oil Stadium and felt more open. But overall, Ford Field, great stadium. This is definitely one of like top 5 stadiums I would like to visit because I would like it to change my mind. Coming in at number 18, I have Gillette Stadium, home of the New England Patriots. I feel like when you hear of Gillette Stadium, you think of one thing, or at least I do. That's the GOAT Tom Brady playing there and winning 6 championships. They have worked very hard to give Gillette Stadium its own little town for fans, which I love. The ownership has been very nice for the Patriots. Like, they care for the overall fan experience. I love how they took the stadium and they just added to it. You know, a lot of other stadiums should do that, like MetLife Stadium, or the Buffalo Bills are getting a new stadium, but just things like that. I love it. They have built several hotels, restaurants, and shops. What's nice about the stadium is the owners have worked just so hard to consistently renovate and update the stadium. Overall, it's a great stadium. I love how the seats obviously match the team's colors. Good stadium. These are starting to get to like really the better half of the stadiums here. Just because it's at number 18 does not mean it's bad by any means. It's still really good. Coming in at number 17, I have Hard Rock Stadium, home of the Miami Dolphins. It's a great stadium, although it's not right in the city of Miami. It's a bit north. I think Hard Rock Stadium is actually a very beautiful stadium. It just seems so bright and truly fits perfectly for the Miami Dolphins. Being in Miami, being named the Dolphins, like having vibrant, bright colors is part of your thing. And they executed that very well. I think the seat colors of the stadium are perfect. The Videotrons are in perfect spots with how the stadium is basically shaped and built. It seems like a great stadium to catch a game at 1 p.m. on a Sunday. Coming in at number 16, we have Acrisure Stadium, formerly known as the famous Heinz Field. I hope I pronounced Acrisure right. Sorry if I didn't. Great location, beautiful stadium. The only thing keeping it still at number 16 is the ones ahead are all a tad bit more special in my opinion. But this stadium, I think, truly has one of the best football views in the NFL. Pittsburgh just knows how to do it right with their stadiums, clearly being the Pittsburgh Pirates having PNC Park, beautiful, beautiful stadium, and Heinz Field, formerly known, just beautiful as well. There are things to do outside the stadium, like bars and restaurants, beautiful scenery all around. It's a great atmosphere on game days, and it's a super solid stadium. I'm sure a lot of fans, their one complaint is probably just it being by the water and when it gets very cold. But clearly, with you guys having all those championships and playing through the heart of winter, you seem to be okay with it. Coming in at number 15, we have State Farm Stadium, home of the Arizona Cardinals. Off the bat, the stadium isn't pleasing to see upon arrival. Looks like a big old air balloon. The stadium on the inside is worth going to. They just hosted the most recent Super Bowl. It's surrounded by partial neighborhoods, and then the rest are kind of hotels, restaurants, and a lot of shopping. It reminds me of an off-brand Mercedes-Benz stadium, just by the inside. The stadium is less than 20 years old. I have read things saying the concourses are outdated and nothing to rave about, but the overall look of the stadium looks great and great place to watch a game. So yeah, State Farm Stadium just being right in the middle, I think is a perfect spot for it. Coming in at number 14, I have M&T Bank Stadium, home of the Baltimore Ravens. There is just something really appealing to me about this stadium. I don't know if it's because of the purple or just Baltimore in general creates great stadiums, but I definitely think the stadium deserves to be on the higher half of this list. I think the video boards in between the seats on the bottom and upper decks is a really unique aspect to the stadium. But overall, that's really all I have to say about the stadium. It's just overall a nice, solid stadium. Coming in at number 13, I have Raymond James Stadium, home of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Based off what I could assume, a lot of people may think and be surprised, like, wow, she put this at number 13. I just still think that this is a good stadium, but a lot of rankings that I have seen have had this in the bottom 10. Kind of surprising to me. I see a lot of great things about the stadium. The only thing I could see being a problem is that it's an outdoor stadium in Florida. The pirate ship is a great touch of personality to the stadium. I think it's kind of known for that friggin' pirate ship. And location, other than it's literally across the street from an airport, which the only thing I could take as a positive from that is like when they host a Super Bowl or just out of town fans coming in and they literally land, get a hotel, and the stadium's right there. But other than that, no, it's not in Tampa Bay. It's a little bit out of the way. Something about the stadium just sticks out to me, and that's why it still sits at number 13. Coming in at number 12, I have Levi Stadium, home of the San Francisco 49ers. This stadium reminds me of Raymond James Stadium just so much, just on steroids. And I mean that in the best way possible. My only complaint is how it isn't in the city of San Fran at all. It's about an hour south near San Jose. And the stadium doesn't really seem to have much around it to do. The seats or the suites, whatever they are on one side of the stadium, I think that's a great addition. I like to kind of see it. It looks like it could be like a hotel on the side of the stadium, but I'm pretty sure they're just like suites, right? Like special seating sections up there. You guys will have to let me know. I've never been there. Overall, Levi Stadium, it does seem to be a great stadium to see a game despite the location for fans. So yeah, I think it sits fairly at number 12. Coming in at number 11, I have Arrowhead Stadium, home of the Kansas City Chiefs. First and foremost, other than tailgating, there is nothing to do around the stadium. It is right next to Kauffman Stadium, which is just like it, surrounded by a parking lot. But I have heard, and it's clear, okay, the game day atmosphere puts the stadium as high as it is, other than just the stadium itself, because it is an older stadium. There's a lot of rave around this team in Arrowhead. I still feel like I just still had to put it at 11. The stadium upper decks behind the end zones that curve and then have the video boards kind of in that curve. Something about that just stands out to me at Arrowhead. Like, it's perfectly symmetrical. And for me, who's kind of a bit OCD, it's kind of like a fun thing to just look at. Like I already said, it is an older stadium, but it works. And the Chiefs have had, I'll say it again, a ton of success here. The fans show up, they make it an exhilarating experience, and all of that itself, it goes at number 11. Getting it started for us at the top 10 is Lincoln Financial Field, home of the Philadelphia Eagles. There's just something about Philly sports that I just seem to favorite. I will say, there isn't really too much to do around this stadium, within walking distance at least. But I still love this stadium. It's one of my personal favorites The overall color of the stadium slash basically the color of the seats fits the Eagles perfectly. There's something about it, it just looks so sharp. The Eagles logo in the upper decks on both sides is something that I don't see every single team do, and I love it. But overall, I don't even know how else to explain it. I just love the look of the stadium, and that's why it's getting the top 10 started for us. Coming in at number 9, I have Empower Field at Mile High, home of the Denver Broncos. Surprisingly, the stadium is this high on my list, and I say surprising because the stadium reminds me of Paycor just a little bit, and that stadium is at like number 22 on this list. Kind of like what you hear me say about, I believe it was Arrowhead Stadium. I just kind of love how proportionate the stadium is, other than that one like end zone side. It's just like so similar all around. And I'm talking like all the decks. It's just like one wraparound right there. I know it's kind of a little bit weird, but I just wanted to say that. I think it just looks very sleek. And another plus, the sunsets in Denver are spectacular, which make evening games such a vibe there. Coming in at number 8, I have Lucas Oil Stadium of the Indianapolis Colts. First and foremost, location is great about the stadium. It has plenty of hotels, bars, and restaurants near it. It's pretty much like it's right there in the city. The stadium is also angled diagonally from north to south according to how the sun hits the stadium, which I found very interesting. One of my favorite things about the stadium is just how open it feels for being an enclosed stadium. The roof opens, there's a very large window that opens that allows more like natural airflow. All the architecture of the stadium really makes the stadium super unique, and that's why it's still at number 8 on my list. Like, it's definitely like one of the better stadiums. Coming in at number 7, I have Lumen Field, home of the Seattle Seahawks. Lumen Field is such like a beautiful stadium. Location is great. It's near water. It is right next to T-Mobile Park, home of the Seattle Mariners, which is also another great stadium. It has so many amenities within walking distance for both the football stadium and the baseball stadium. My personal favorite about the stadium is the end zone facing the north side. It is truly one of the best views in football. The tall buildings of Seattle, if the sun is setting on an evening game, I could just imagine how beautiful that is. Like, Lumen Field is a stadium I want to visit at some point. And you know, Seattle is known for having not such great weather. Like, I've heard a lot of people that live in Seattle say like there's only a couple great days out of the year that are like perfect. The video boards on the north side of the stadium being vertical and having the section of seats underneath it kind of like slant up to it. There's something about that, it's just very eye-appealing to me. And then you have the view of the buildings right behind it. Something about that right there, I don't know how to explain. It just looks so nice. Overall, this is a top-notch stadium. This is truly like starting the best stadiums here at number 7. Coming in at number 6, I have AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. I think this stadium is the slightest bit, teensy bit, overrated. It's still a great stadium. Clearly it's at my number 6. But the only highlight for me about this stadium are the huge video boards coming from the middle of the ceiling. And that's like my highlight that I can look at and be like, oh, that's cool. The exterior is really cool. It's kind of like a friggin' spaceship in my opinion. And the roof is able to be opened. It's an overall good stadium for sure. That's why it's still at my number 6 stadium. It's a newer stadium. It's a nice stadium, but nothing crazy stands out to me about it, to be completely honest. And that's why I said the slightest bit overrated, because I've seen some people put it at their number 1 spot and I'm nowhere near that thought. So that's the only reason I say it. Anyways, moving on to our top 5. Coming in at top 5, I have the newest built stadium of the NFL, Allegiant Stadium, home of the Las Vegas Raiders. But because I'm a baseball fan, I know that the Oakland Coliseum was complete trash because of, I've done a lot of research on that kind of stuff. So I'm really happy for the Raiders finally having like an amazing stadium. It's just a great atmosphere. It's a great stadium. But my one complaint, okay, is how I believe you're like able to walk into the stadium, and if the Raiders logo isn't imprinted on the field, it's hard to know that the Raiders play there if you didn't know any better. But I'm not trying to bash the stadium. I love it. It's at number 5. Just, I feel like it lacks a bit of personality. That's probably holding it from being at like the number 3 or 2 spot. The concourses are incredible. They have premium clubs all around the stadium and great seats all around the stadium. and that are very comfortable too. The turf is able to be moved outside to get natural sunlight and be treated with whatever the heck it needs. I don't know. I'm not grounds crew. Like I kind of said, it is hard to believe that they once played at the Oakland Coliseum, and they're going to be hosting the Super Bowl of 2024 here in just literally 2 or 3 weeks from me right now. Coming in at number 4, I have Mercedes-Benz Stadium, home of the Atlanta Falcons. This stadium absolutely looks so gorgeous. My favorite part of it is the infinity video board in the enclosure of the ceiling opening. It's able to be seen by anyone, anywhere. It's just unique. You don't see anything like that. When it comes to amenities, they excel at that. They have so many food options within the stadium. I've heard it's hard to stay in your seats and not venture out. The way the stadium ceiling opens is the cherry on top. On the exterior of the roof, you have the Mercedes logo, and the way that the roof opens, the only way I can explain it is like a spiral. The way it opens, it's so cool, man. It's just so unique. I actually haven't been there yet in person, but I did drive by it just a couple months ago when I was visiting in Atlanta, and just being on the outside of it was just super cool to see. And the Falcons sculpture that they have on the outside of the stadium, it's just really neat. I definitely see myself going to a game there one day. It's unfortunate the Falcons can't play playoff football of their own here, but one day that'll come, and that'll be great. Coming in at number 3, I have US Bank Stadium, home of the Minnesota Vikings. I have never been here, but my cousin is a huge Vikings fan. They have even been there just over the summer to see a Taylor Swift concert, and I have heard great things about the stadium through their experience. Location is great for the stadium, okay? It's right in the city of Minneapolis. The one thing that single-handedly puts the stadium so high is the architecture of it, but it's just so clearly a top 3 stadium in the league. You desperately need an enclosed stadium in Minnesota, so they execute that must so well. Natural light, great amenities, great environment. I love how you can get a suite on field level. The purple seats look so fresh. It does have hotels and restaurants near too, within walking distance. Not much else to point out. That's just all of it right there. It's just a beautiful stadium. The huge doors that open to be able to walk in and out of the stadium. Love it. I just love it. This was at my number 2 spot for so long, but I hate to say it, kind of last minute, I did put it at number 3 because number 2 and number 1, both kind of completely different stadiums, still offer just a tad bit more to be at the number 1 and 2 spot. Moving on to our number 2 spot being SoFi Stadium, home of the Los Angeles Chargers and the Rams. First and foremost, again, this stadium just looks like it cost $5.5 billion to build. Arguably the best video board in all of football. Clearly worth a ton, and I think it worked out for them. The stadium looks just so bright. Like there's no roofing at all. There's an open air field to it while also technically inside, and since LA usually always has great weather, it's great to utilize both qualities, having beautiful weather, but when it is very hot, just having enough airflow throughout the stadium to kind of give it that outside feel. It's clear that it has one of the best architecture designs as well on the outside. The floor level seats as well are a great view to offer fans. It's a great stadium. I see it hosting many Super Bowls in the future. But coming in at number 1, I have Lambeau Field, home of the Green Bay Packers. And listen, I'm a Bears fan, but I just have to admit how great Lambeau Field is. I would love if Soldier Field was able to get the same recognition for it being just an old stadium, but Lambeau Field has just done a great job at solidifying the history of the stadium. I did debate, okay, if I did truly want this as my number 1 spot, because like I already said, you could argue for Allegiant Stadium, SoFi Stadium, US Bank Stadium. All of those are worthy of the number 1 spot, but I think part of me went history over flashy. It holds so much of an old school vibe throughout the stadium. Clearly, the old school bleachers have something to do with that. If you watch my MLB stadium ranking, Fenway and Wrigley Field were the number 1 and 2 spots on my list, and I don't know if it's just I'm an old school person, but I take history a little bit over the flashy. Ironically, the location reminds me of Wrigley Field. It is basically like kind of surrounded by like neighborhoods, but also having amenities and restaurants and shops and things to do. When it's game day or just football season in general, Green Bay goes crazy for the Packers. They do have a couple bars near it. Tailgating is huge in Green Bay. In the winter when it snows, I have seen like huge like sledding hills be available for use literally right in the parking lot of the stadium. I believe like what you call Title Town. So all of you guys watching, you're just gonna have to kind of comment down below and tell me like your favorite perks of the stadiums you have been to. But other than that, Lambeau Field was just deserving of number one. Obviously, one of the things is when the Packers are in the playoffs, it is hella cold there. And the cold bleacher seats, I don't imagine being the nicest in that moment. We are done with the NFL stadium rankings. Honestly, I think this is worth it. I truly hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I made this list back in November. I'm gonna be honest with you right now. I didn't start it until after Christmas when I analyzed every single stadium, and I just wanted to make sure that I put all the info, all the opinions, and when I make any sort of ranking, I just truly try my best to make sure it's a perfect list in my book. But I'm so excited to be getting back into these videos for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It is my first football related video, and I definitely have a couple more up my sleeve. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you're watching this right now, comment down below like the stadiums you've been to, the perks of it, the history of your stadium. Let me know if you agree or disagree with most of my takes. I always love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. And yeah, just make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit that like button if you did enjoy. And I'll stop rambling on there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.